Welcome to Ask Hypnotica 49. I'm glad you're with me today to explore this question from Sean K. from LA. He has a two-part question. His question personally relates to the video about charisma. That's right. And how you said charisma wasn't the number one attractor for women. You said the number one attractor is the electromagnetic energy in and around your body, hormones, and lastly, pheromones. You were going to go into it, but you said not for that video. So, if you can furthermore speak on this holistic subject, it would be greatly appreciated. That's question one. All right, Sean, let's break it down. All right. I experimented a lot with this in my day. Whether you know or not know, okay, I partied my balls off a lot. All right. Not because I was like wild and out of control, but because I wanted to go through the realm of drug use, okay, from a positive mindset and not be categorized as, hey, he's a drug addict, because I was healthier than most normal people. And I always counterbalance things. So if I had to go party, and listen, when I partied. Like, I would do this. I'm proud. No, actually, I am proud because I pushed it, man. I had a good time. Although, man, my jaws the next day were hurting. Okay, like when I partied, I'd do like 17E, all right? Maybe with mescaline, with some marijuana. Not Coke. I don't like Coke. Okay, I tried it like 2 times. I'm like, whatever. Okay, but I used to mix and I used to party hard. Why? Because I like to put myself in those situations. And in those situations, when I was at parties or I was at festivals or I was doing whatever I was doing, even though sometimes I didn't know what I was doing, all right, I really tested this because that was my way of testing things that most people aren't aware of, okay? And this is not a proactive drug thing because I know lots of people that have been totally screwed up on drugs and stuff like that. In fact, you know, if you do that, it's like a neutral ground, all right? You don't know where you're walking. You could slip into a porthole anywhere you go, and I'm just letting you know, okay? But I can now say that I've walked through that realm. I walked through the valley of ganja, drugs, and all that stuff, and I came out okay. So I have a way better idea of myself than most people because now I'm bored of it. Imagine that. Like, I'm bored. It doesn't do anything for me anymore. As a matter of fact, it now takes me backwards, all right? So it's done deal. But I can now say I got that. But this is what I learned about charisma, because when you're in those situations, you know, you have a lot of energetic things going on, okay? And one of the things I learned, especially on ecstasy, all right, I could be like normal state of mind. I could be putting things off and go to a party. You know, maybe if I don't drink, okay, but maybe I have drinking before. But I walk in, I have kind of this vibe going to me, okay? That's kind of like the energetics of it. When I walk in, I'm kind of have my energies up. It's kind of like you got to match the level of a party and things like this. But when I noticed when I was on ecstasy, okay, ding, ding, okay, when I was on ecstasy, what I noticed is I didn't have to say anything. All right, at all, lots of times. And I could just walk up to someone, and because my intention was there, my electromagnetic energy, because it does open up serotonin and dopamine level, all kinds of things when you're there. Bad part is that afterwards, you have a lack of dopamine and serotonin and things like this, and you can feel pretty depressed. Trust me, I know I was like, the end of the world, man, it's not good. Okay, I had those days. I learned how to get out of that. Lots of exercise, even though it doesn't feel good, but that's what you got to do, and nutrition. So, bottom line, I'd walk into a place and I wouldn't say a word, all right? I could just walk right up to someone, have that eye contact, and it's on. So what is that? That's like that unconscious full openness of the electromagnetic energy influencing from your intention, okay? From your pheromones. When you get your pheromones going, that's one of the things I always say. Like, you know, people use porn and they jerk off and lose all their zinc and things like this and their vitality when they go off. Me, I would just kind of like maybe watch 5 minutes, and as soon as I felt my body like, I'm feeling like, yeah, like maybe I could have a little love session with myself. But I didn't. I just said, okay, my energy's there. I feel my pheromones are ready to go. And then I go out and have a good time, all right? Because I have that kind of sniffing in the air, okay? And whether science has proven this or not, I know, I've tested it, okay? So, you know, science, there's lots of things that science haven't proved, which we're actually going to talk about, like the aura. Now, aura was kind of more of a hippie phase. Now, because scientifically they can start to measure what was bullshit before, now has a new name, if you haven't studied bioenergetics. It is now called HES, H-E-S, the Human Energetic System. They can now measure it, okay? So now, what was an aura, which is bullshit, is now the human electrical system. All right, so what I mean by that is if your energy's strong, and this is things like we talk about, like handshakes, all right? Now, have you ever shook a dude's hand that it feels like a limp fish and it's just like, okay, girls hate it, and I hate it, okay? It's annoying. But Napoleon Hill talked about it in Think and Grow Rich, is when you give a handshake, like you're giving some biofeedback to that person. Who are you? What's your energy like? What's your overall vitality? What's your strength? How present are you? All this is being given through the bioenergetics, okay? Your nonverbals. So when you're in situations like that, you don't have to say anything. And by the way, this is a little trick. If someone's trying to like amog you, okay, I'm going to go to some of the pickup artist lingo there, even though pickup artist is goofy to me. All right, okay. When a person tries to shake your hand, all you got to do is flip these two fingers up. Try it with your friend. Have them squeeze as hard as you want, and then just go boop like this. And they lose they can't do it. They can squeeze as hard as you want. And I've had that happen lots of times where guys would come up to me try to squeeze my hand, even though I'd rip their hand off and their arm and beat them over the head with it. But I'm a nice guy. So as soon as they do that, I just flip these two fingers up, and it sends that message to them because they're squeezing, and I just like looking at them like, come on, bro, that's the way it goes. But the bottom line is this: charisma is important. Don't get me wrong. Okay, you're not going to go around like, these are special states of mind when you're in the medicinal drug world, all right, so to speak, or organic plants that people have deemed drugs. It's a different thing, all right? So it's not something that you're normally going to experience, although having experienced that and gone through that, I've learned a lot of things about the underworld, so to speak. And energetics is first, because I didn't say anything. It was all about the intention. It was all about the energy. The pheromones were there. And so that's why I personally say that. Some people may have a different opinion, and that's great. That's what... that's how the world goes around in a democracy. Unless you have other ideas about it and want to be a fascist. Okay, that's the new cool word right now. Especially if, actually, the fascists that say other people are fascists are more fascist than the people that just have a strong opinion. But let's not get into that. Okay, so that's my whole thing. Now, charisma is huge. All right, if you have charisma, okay, and lack of energy, you can get by. All right, don't get me wrong, you can still get by. I've seen lots of like people that didn't have a lot of energy but had charisma, all right, get by and do fine with the ladies. These are things that are so tightly woven together, okay? I'm not gonna say one is the other, but in my system, if I'm feeling like, I put it this way, and I've tested things all across the board, okay? I've tested like, it's Hypnotica, I'm all about the mind, okay? Neglected the body, saw how that affected my mind, okay? And then I did like the mind and the body together and meditated and things like this. Powerful thing when you're on point. But I tested how one can affect the other, especially if I'm partying a lot and going there. How does that affect my mind? How does that affect my spirituality? So this is the whole thing about know thyself. The exam in life is number one. And these are the things that I've learned along the way. So when it's going into this, remember, they're all tied in together. It's not like one is better than the other, okay? They all intertwine, and you have consciousness on it, and you study it, and you examine yourself, and you're like, okay, well, what do I need to work, or what do I need to improve? How can improving on this make it better? What about eye contact? Okay, that's huge too. Eye contact, and then there's, how do you stand? It's body language, and then there's also hygiene, okay? And then there's actually like smiling and flirting with the eyes and being able to push and pull and tease, okay? All these things tying together. So understand this is a holistic thing to be a well-rounded man, all right? So those are the things I want to say, but the energetics to me obviously come first, all right? So that's just my understanding of it. Hopefully you get this. It's a little vague. Now, your second question relates to me being a vegan. So after following me for some time now and also adopted being vegan, being one for 8 months, so thank you. Thank you. And the cows thank you as well. And the rain spirits and the rainforest and the indigenous tribes that are down south and the water and all these other good things. But let's not get into that either, okay? Especially the cows, okay? The cows, the chickens, and the poor little piggies, okay? Because they don't live a good life at all, especially when they're in the agriculture farming. But like I said, maybe you just have a knack for eating meat. Maybe you don't. Who knows? All right. His problem is and concerns with the weight department. I've been on quinoa, avocados, lentils, and working out, plus taking a vegan protein shake. And from the Body Shop here in HW, wherever that is. Okay. If you have any feedback on how to do this, please let me know. And one final thing, as a vegan and someone who is now health conscious considered, I am an Advent cologne user. Should I stop using cologne altogether since it may harm the skin? Thanks and infinite love to me. All right. Let me just start with the cologne. Okay. Most people don't know this, but cologne is mostly formaldehyde. All right. Yes, it's true. It is. So if you're splashing that cologne on you, you might want to like take it back a step. Now, am I one of these like I'm very in the middle, okay? I believe I'm more like the 80-20 or sometimes the 90-10 rule, all right? If I know I'm going to go to a certain thing, I might dab a little cologne on, okay? Just a little bit, all right? If I'm going out or something like this, all right? But I've also been experimenting with herbal and aromatherapy techniques. Now, I haven't yet found the good one that I really like, because they can be a little fruity, and I'm not really the fruity type. But there are going to be some alternatives, I believe, because I'm looking for them, all right, that women are like, you smell good, like naturally, all right, and actually does benefit for you, except because formaldehyde doesn't really do much for you, all right? I got my bucks, though, once in high school. I ate a tongue for, I think it was $20, and formaldehyde didn't feel too good afterwards. I thought I was going to actually I had a really bad headache, but I made that $20 in high school. That was a lot. So that's my whole thing on cologne. Be very careful with it, all right? And there are healthy alternatives. You just got to find the right one. Now, here's the thing with being a vegan. Lots of people do it wrong. And so lots of people are like, oh, I felt weak on it, okay? And I've talked about this a lot. And there's a right way, and trust me, I say this over and over, it's not easy to figure out. Okay, this has a lot to do with your experimenting, the levels. It's a multi-faceted thing. And this is why you have to experiment with it, okay? You have to figure out, okay, are you exercising too much? Okay, what is your diet like? Are you eating enough fats? Are you eating enough, when I say grains, I mean sprouted grains. Are you eating enough carbohydrates, especially if you're, let's just say, more athletic? All right, so you got to find what it is. And are you releasing growth hormone when you're working out? Are you doing high intensity stuff, which releases growth hormone? And what's your overall goal? This is a big one because calorie deficient diets, okay, are proven. It's across the board. So there's no denying this. Everyone agrees on this. Those that eat less calories live longer. So are you going for health or are you going for a certain look? If you're going for a certain look, then you're going to have to probably step it up a little bit more, and you're going for that, and you're letting go more of the anti-aging effects and things to that nature. So my whole thing is, I eat foods that are going to be absorbed, because remember, and I keep on saying this, it's not the food that you eat, it's the food that you absorb. So if you're mixing things and you're not properly food combining, it's going to the digestive enzymes in your stomach are going to cross cancel each other. It's going to ferment, and your body's going to see pass it through. It can't use any of it. So you really want to optimize the level of nutrition that your body can actually use. All right. And there are things like, chewing. Are you chewing a lot? If chewing is one of the best things you can do for your digestion. It's kind of like, think about a nightclub. All right, you have the bouncers at front, and they're doing most of the work of separating who's drunk and who's not drunk, who can come in the club. Imagine if they went like this and they didn't really check too thoroughly. They're like, oh, you're good. Okay, this guy's drunk. They don't even notice it. It's like chewing. Okay, you just chew a couple times. You're not thorough about it, and you pass the food through your stomach. So now the person's on the inside, and the inside is supposed to be a whole different vibe. But now with the DJs and the waitresses, they're the ones that have a certain flow with food and feeling. But this person comes in where he could have been stopped at the front door, and most of the work could have been done up here. Now the person on the inside has to deal with it, and it's not optimal for them. So now there maybe a fight breaks out because this guy at the front didn't do his job. So when the person's on the inside, they have to do more work that's not really their work. On the inside, they have to put a lot more energy towards it instead of energy towards selling drinks and having a good time and making sure people are safe. So chewing is huge as well, if you understand that analogy. All right, so think about that. Chew your food a lot up here so your body doesn't have to go into the energetics to break it down, because if you have big clumps in your stomach, it's going to sit there and toss it over and over and over and try to break it down. It's a lot of extra work that it has to do that your teeth can do. Now, is it hard to chew a lot? Yeah, absolutely, okay? Where I grew up, it was like if you didn't eat fast, you didn't eat. So you want to make sure that you slow down. And trust me, it's going to really test you'll know that if you're out of shape, if you chew 25 to 50 bites, yum, 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 like that, okay, and your jaws are out of shape. So these are my advice things to you. Like I said, you have to experiment, man. There's no one way that one person can understand these things. And so it's not, I can't cookie cut this and say, this is what it is. All I can say is, make sure you're eating enough. Make sure that when, I intermittent fast, so I only eat for the most part between 12 and 6 p.m. and then I'm done. But I work my ass off. I'm in the gym, not too many people can keep up with me as far as my intensity. So you have to have that working out and things like that. And if you're younger and you're still losing weight, then, spread it out a bit, okay? Or add it maybe from 12 to 8. Or experiment or go all day long. Find out where it is. And that's really the only advice I can give you as far as I make sure that the food that you're actually eating is actually bioabsorbable and it's being used by your body and not just passing through. These are the things I want you to think about. So hopefully, like I said, I can't give you the answer on that one. All I can say is these are things to look out for, experiment, and to go at that level because, like I said, everyone that I've put on for the most part, some people do lose a little bit of weight, but what kind of weight is it also? Is it fat? If it's muscle, then you got to, maybe increase your protein a little bit, work out a little bit harder, maybe a little bit more, usable carbohydrates and things like this. And then, like I said, experiment, get down with it, and hopefully that works. So with that being said, I hope I gave you some useful advice on a certain level, and we'll talk to you next with Hypnotica 50. Oh, by the way, remember, because it's been a few times, if you have any questions, send them to askhypnotica@gmail.com. If you like it, subscribe, have a good time, because if you subscribe, when you die, if you do die, don't buy into the bullshit there, you're going to have 120 virgins waiting for you, only if you subscribe. So, that, Hypnotica, adios.